Hey guys, so we're going to start with giant screencast number 2. First up is learning disabilities, child find, least restrictive environment, and assessment and planning. Number 2. Okay, so first off is working with parents. Before the student study team meets, make sure that you are being factual, not emotional. You have to ask if the parents would be willing to participate. You have to ask about homework and parental expectations for the child. And then for the parent preparation sheet, it's going to include relevant parental information about the child, including the child's strengths and weaknesses, parental concerns for the child, motivations for the child to succeed, and the parents' goals for the child. And this should be turned in at the student study team's meeting. And some possible parental reactions are going to include denial, anger, guilt, blaming themselves for what happened to the child during like in utero experiences, resignation to, I guess, the hand they've been dealt, depression, and acceptance. And once the acceptance level is reached by the parents, then you can start resolving the problems that you're finding with the child. So the process and summary sheets, the student study team does the following. It gathers student data, which includes their test scores and work. It plans strategies to help the student within the general education program. It monitors the student's progress in classes and in school. It builds trust between the parents and the school. And it makes referrals for formal evaluation if the student needs it. So this could include entry into special education for special education services. And the summary sheet is a list of general information, modifications, strengths, concerns, questions about the student, strategies to help the student, actions of the teacher and the responsibility of who's going to take responsibility for the child's success or failure, and when certain academic goals are going to be met. And accommodations could include in a study team. There's quite a few that are listed, and teachers can be creative when deciding which ones to assign to their student. You can see figure 5.8 in the book. But there are also digital accommodations that you can use and sensory accommodations you can use for the student. And this could include a computer game in class, computer instruction, and laptops to do notes. This can help students who have trouble with motor control keep up with the rest of the class because typing is generally easier than writing with a pencil. And quite a few of these solutions can be pretty low tech. And sensory accommodations could include like special seats. You could have feedback mats if you have a student who's sensitive to certain sounds or music or something. You can give them headphones to either cancel the noise or to have music playing. There's special clothing that students can wear that'll help them calm down just by the texture. And you could also have a weighted vest. Somehow that helps the student kind of stay calm. Next up is the least restrictive environment. So your legal rights for your student in Public Law 94-142 states that any student with a handicap or disability has the right to a free and appropriate public education within the least restrictive environment, including inclusion into the general education setting where applicable. So basically, you have the right to be in the gen ed classroom if the proper accommodations can be made for you. Parents have the right to require confidential treatment of their child's records. They have the right to review and inspect the records whenever they want to. They are allowed to have copies of all records regarding their child on file with the school. They have the right to release records in handwriting. They have the right to be notified in advance of any meeting for their child. They can request assessments. They can be apprised of assessment tools and to be assessed in the spoken language of the child. And the parents can request an independent evaluation, not inside of the school. They can have input into the IEP's development. Parents can even refuse services. Parents can have an independent and fully paid private school placement if needed by the school system. And parents finally have the right to request a fair hearing if there is a disagreement in regard to the identification of a learning disability, placement of the child, or the services given to the child. So let's take a look at a court case, an example for Ronker v. Walter. The court required the school to serve a child with a disability in a non-segregated setting because necessary accommodations could be made to that classroom. And what we can take away from this is children cannot be removed from the general education because they need accommodations. And this is what Public Law 34 CFR 300.116 means. So in addition to this, it was a Michigan court case requiring a school to serve a child with a disability in a non-segregated setting when supports could be applied to make the setting appropriate. And that law is a section of IDEA that makes it clear students with disabilities cannot be removed from the general education setting for needing modifications to access the gen ed curriculum. So the Universal Dedication Vision Statement, I can't spell, is part of the procedures for the Michigan State Board of Education for determining the least restrictive environment. It was adopted in 2005, and it includes a principle that honors the rights of students to learn together. So just because the student has a disability, you have no right to keep them from learning with other students. So provisions of the public laws there. There are 3 provisions in IDEA for funding qualified teachers and accessing the general education curriculum that have an impact on the least restrictive environment. Now for the 2 listed in the title, those include the following. States cannot adopt funding mechanisms that result in placements violating the least restrictive environment, such as providing more money to schools for segregated programs. And states must employ only highly qualified teachers for special education. These teachers must meet certain qualifications and must also now have content matter qualifications in order to teach special education, thanks to the No Child Left Behind Act. The last one is part of Public Law 20 USC 1401 and 34 CFR 300.18. And this says that schools must offer all students access to the general education curriculum according to state standards. And in Michigan, this means that from K through 8 and again in 9 through 12, students must be offered access to grade level content expectations. And if there's a way for the student to access the curriculum with proper supports, they have to be provided by law. So in 504, least restrictive environments must be offered under IDEA guidelines. But Section 504 requires that if a student is in a placement away from a regular school, then the facilities, equipment, and programs available to that student in the placement must be comparable to those that they would receive in a normal education setting at the other school. Finally, assessment and planning. So the multidisciplinary team, this team includes the school psychologist, the classroom teacher, special education teacher, specialist, the school nurse, parents, and a school administrator. And what this does is it helps determine if the student might need to go into having a manifestation determination in an IEP. So first, the teacher is going to note problem areas for the student. They're going to schedule a meeting with the caregivers to review the diagnosing process. If the caregiver approves this, then the evaluation will begin. And this includes examination of multiple aspects of performance using a team approach, which makes the evaluation more complete. And if it is determined that further help and testing is needed, the formal evaluation, also using the team approach, will be started. This includes psychoeducational testing, observation, and samples of student work and test scores. And each team member contributes information to this report that will help form the educational plan for that student. And an example of IQ stuff with court cases. Example is Larry P. versus Riles, California in 1979. And this court case called into question whether IQ tests are racially and culturally discriminatory. And the ruling said that the intellectual functioning of a black child must be gauged by his adaptive behaviors, past history and development, and classroom performance and academic achievement, not just the IQ testing. IQ tests can be used to determine a child's intellectual functioning. There's a variety of tests used to determine the number. The average number is about 97. and it used to be part of the main determining process for special services, along with a pattern of strengths and weaknesses. It's no longer used as the primary basis, but it can still be used as a secondary aid. Common tests include the Wessler Intelligence Scales for Children, Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale, 5th edition, Kaufman Assessment Battery for Children, 2nd edition, Slauson Intelligence Test Revised, and the Test of Nonverbal Intelligence, 3rd edition. Now, with that Wessler Intelligence Scores for Children, it contains several different subtests to measure both verbal and performance skills. It is individually administered, and it measures just those verbal and performance skills. Verbal tests include information, similarities, arithmetic, vocabulary, comprehension, and digit span. Performance tests include picture completion, picture arrangement, block design, object assembly, coding, symbol search, and mazes. When the test is scored, a profile can be seen. The scores that follow show wide fluctuations in the subtest scores. An average score is 10, and where the child's score is lower than 10, the greater the weakness is in that area. Higher than 10 in an area indicates a strength for that child. Now, 3 common assessments that are used are, for academics, are the Brigance Diagnostic Inventory of Basic Skills, revised, and this is used for K through 9 and tests for readiness, reading, language arts, and math, and it pinpoints specific skills that are not learned yet and can be helpful in writing IEP goals. A second one is the Kaufman Test of Educational Achievement, and this one is a norm reference standardized test for pre-K through 12 students, and it measures decoding skills, reading comprehension, spelling, mathematics, computation, and applications. And there's the Wide Range Achievement Test, and that one is norm referenced, used for individuals 5 to 75, and it has a wide range of testing in decoding, spelling, and arithmetic, and this one is advantageous for its quickness and reliability. And observation and data is usually conducted by a special education specialist. It can be as short as 10 minutes, and they like to have at least 2 class observations. 3 is preferred. It's used to help with assessment and identification of students with learning disabilities. And the types of data collected includes like general organization of the student and how well they understand, how quickly the student gets started, and how their organization compares to nearby students. A statement of their handedness and their fine motor control, so which side they write with. A statement of verbal fluency, activity level, skills demonstrated, clues about the language level, perception of the student's speed, and a statement concerning the student's status of grooming, allergies, and other areas. Now, what's a pattern of strengths and weaknesses? This was a technique of finding an area of academic weakness in the 8 categories for qualifying for a specific learning disability. And it's a data collection process over time that includes test scores and samples of work of the student. In some cases, this is the only necessary qualification for special ed services, and it used to be part of the original discrepancy model. It used to be part of the old pattern with an IQ test that would determine whether or not a student was eligible for special ed services. And the discrepancy model, finally, was previously used to award services, but it is no longer the primary model. And it shows a large discrepancy between student test scores and IQ. So if the IQ is 100, the test scores should be 100. Lower than 85 for an IQ is, for an IQ is a low IQ. And below 70 is considered mentally handicapped. So that's it. Hope I kept it brief enough for you, Miss Yates. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.